Okay, well, it's good to be here with you all tonight. We might be expecting a few more folks, including our presenter from DOEE, but I wanted to go ahead and get us started. It's really good to be here with everyone. If you haven't already, please go ahead and introduce yourself in the chat um, with your name and what congregation you're coming from. Everybody here is in DC, but it's good to get to know each other. So I'll go ahead and get us started. So I want to begin with a land acknowledgement for our home here in Washington, DC. We acknowledge that this land is the traditional territory of the Nacotchtank and Piscataway peoples. Their presence is imbued in the lands and waters surrounding us. May we nurture our relationship with our Indigenous neighbors and the shared responsibilities to their homelands where we all reside today. So my name is Maddie Smith. My pronouns are they, them, and I am the clean energy shepherd here at Interfaith Power and Light. And we are a small local nonprofit that works particularly with faith communities on climate and the environment. So we do everything from helping support green teams within congregations, as well as working on state level advocacy or district level advocacy. And then my role specifically is to support houses of worship on things like solar, energy efficiency, as well as energy benchmarking that we'll be talking about tonight. So if you or your congregation is ever interested in any of those things, please feel free to reach out to us. So what we're going to learn today is about how to take an accounting of how much energy your congregational facility in DC is using now. And that training is going to be provided by Barbara Martinez from the DC government's Department of Energy Environment. But before I hand over the mic to Barbara, I just want to say a couple things. So we're here today to learn about how to comply with the DC government's benchmarking and building energy performance requirements. But I want to make sure we don't forget that the reason that this law is now on the books in DC and the reason that Washington, DC is a place governed by one of the strongest climate laws in the country is because of the work our congregations did to try to pass that law back in 2018. And I have some fun pictures I wanted to share with everybody. Except for that's not the right tab. Got to get my tabs in order. Okay, here we go. So this is from back when we helped pass the Clean Energy DC Act in 2018, and there were a lot of faith communities, included some of the ones that are represented here today, that worked together to try to pass this law. And it does mean that there are some things that our congregations are now required to do, such as the energy benchmarking. But what we found is there's so much more benefit from having our congregations think about their energy usage in terms of being able to save money and energy. And so I just wanted to share some of these fun pictures from back when this was first playing out. Back when funny enough, I worked at IPL-DMV during that time. And so it's been fun to see kind of the progression. So this phase now that we're in will require gathering a lot of information about your facility and then patiently navigating an online system for entering it. And we are intentionally recording today's webinar with the expectation that you may watch the video more than once and pause it while you gather everything that you'll need and come back to it. The song we heard as we were gathering earlier takes its words from the biblical book of Psalms, teach us to number our days that we may get a heart of wisdom. And I hope we can all remember, if this gets difficult at any point, that taking an accounting can be sacred work, keeping count of how our congregations are using resources and impacting our climate can help us operate our holy places with greater wisdom about how we impact our neighbors, our common home, and how we can save money together. And with that, I'll hand it off to Barbara with DOEE.
Hi, thank you so much, Maddie, Niles, and Interfaith Power and Light for hosting this event. My name is Barbara Martinez. I'm an energy program specialist with the Department of Energy and Environment, and I've been working on the benchmarking program for over 4 years now. So as Maddie said, if at any point I understand the process can be a little difficult if you're new to the program, but we are here to extend our help and support and, get those buildings compliant. So I do have oh, I do have a presentation I would like to share. There it is. Um, all right. So hopefully we can all see my screen. And this is just a brief introduction to the benchmarking program. We'll be going through some of the details perhaps a little bit quickly, but please know we do have extensive guidance on our website. I'm always a resource, and I'm so happy to have IPL partnered with us to help provide their support as well. So today's objectives will be to understand what energy benchmarking is and its importance within DC, learn important deadlines and reporting requirements that are coming up. The big one being May 1st is the due date for many new buildings' first benchmarking cycle. And 3, I'll give a really brief introduction of Energy Star Portfolio Manager, also known as ESPM, where all of your building data will be input and then reported to DOEE. So benchmarking was established a little earlier than 2018. I think in its original form, it became active in 2008, but the 2018 Clean Energy DC Omnibus Amendment Act lowered the minimum building square footage over time. So while this program previously only applied to buildings over 50,000 square feet or buildings over 25,000 square feet, this is our first year where we're expecting benchmarking reports from buildings 10,000 to 25,000 square feet. The same Clean Energy DC Omnibus Amendment Act also set forth basic energy performance standards, known as our BEPS program. I won't get into this too much because for smaller buildings, this will not be relevant to you for a couple of years. So I'd like to get started with benchmarking and kind of establish those foundations first. Benchmarking in DC requires all public and private buildings over 10,000 square feet to report their monthly energy and water use for the entirety of calendar year 2025. So that's January 1st through December 31st. The system is a little bit picky about making sure we have that full 365 days. The annual reporting deadline is May 1st of every year. And, we're all here to help you meet that deadline. If you go a little bit over, we have a little bit of leniency for these first-time reporters. All of your reporting will be done through Energy Star Portfolio Manager. And failure to meet the reporting requirements may result in a fine of up to $100 a day for every day that the building is not in compliance. But as I mentioned, we will be showing a little bit of leniency to first-time reporters, especially those that are showing an effort to comply with the requirements. And the big highlight for this year is, again, many smaller buildings, 10 to 25,000 square feet, are going to be reporting for the first time. DOEE has set up a brand new module on our help desk for first-time reporters in 2026. In this, we've tried to break down the benchmarking process into 6 basic steps. I'm going to go over the first 3 tonight very quickly. They're the most critical for getting your building on DOEE's radar and making sure you have a line of contact to me and my teammates so we can assist you with any difficulties that may come up. First and foremost, create your Energy Star Portfolio Manager account. Then within that account, you'll need to create a profile for your specific building. And lastly, we'll ask that you share that building profile with DOEE. This gives me access to review your data and help tweak any small errors. Energy Star Portfolio Manager. It's been in the news a little bit in the last year. It's an industry standard tool that's been used by thousands of buildings in the district alone so far for many, many years. It allows building owners, property managers, or volunteers for any building group to report their monthly energy and water use and better track and measure a building's energy performance over time. It is 100% free, fully accessible, online, probably on your phone, but I would say it's less mobile friendly. The industry standard across all types of industries, be that multifamily, houses of worship, even heavy industrial facilities have a way to report their data in Portfolio Manager. And for houses of worship, it provides a pretty accessible 1 to 100 score to help you assess your building usage. A 50 is right in the middle, and 100 means you're the peak of energy performers here in the district. This is a sample of what your profile will look like once it's been filled in. This one has some 2024 data because I use it as a test property, but you'll be focused on making sure that through the end of December 2025, you have full year data entered in monthly increments. This should provide you with an Energy Star score, a measure of your energy use intensity, and you'll be able to see if it's all done for the full 365 days, your energy use over time. That includes any solar, gas, and your annual water data. If your building happens to use any other form of energy, we know there are still some buildings that get diesel or fuel oil delivered every now and then, even a couple of buildings on steam loops in the district. Please reach out to us and we'll help you make sure you can input that data. For houses of worship, perhaps not for some of these smaller ones, but a big thing I often see is solar panels. If you have any questions about who owns those renewable energy credits, if you're not sure whether that energy gets used on site or is exported back to Pepco, we can help you work all through that. The most critical thing is that you do report all of the energy used in the building for the year. So these are the 4 big things that will be beneficial for you to start collecting as you prepare to create your portfolio manager account and share that data with us. First and foremost, we need a good contact for the building. Here we use the phrase building owner, but it's really whoever will be the main point person for your house of worship. Very often it might be if someone is taking the lead on operations, occasionally finance, administration, whoever might have the most available information about like your Pepco or WGL or DC water bills is a great contact. We recommend, if possible, using a general email address, houseofworshipdc@inbox.com. And this helps prevent any complications with potential, staff turnover, people moving in and out of the area. This especially goes if your organization is planning to hire a contractor. There are plenty of contractors that do wonderful benchmarking work in the district. Not all of them, though, so do your research. And in this case, we find it's really critical for the people that occupy the building to retain ownership of that account. So please, take a little time, choose a good email address that is frequently checked, and we'll be able to correspond with DOEE about any questions. The second thing you will need is your DC Real Property ID. This goes by many names, including the square suffix lot, the SSL, or your jurisdictional tax lot ID. This information can be found in the covered buildings list that DOEE publishes every year. It's a list of buildings we anticipate fit our size thresholds and should be reporting. Or you can also look it up online through the Office of Tax and Revenue. If you have any building permits around the facility, perhaps an elevator permit, most often your square suffix lot, the tax number is listed on those forms as well. You will need to collect some property use details, such as the building's gross floor area, weekly operating hours, seating capacity, a couple other details like whether or not the facility has any space dedicated to food prep, excuse me, and the percentage of your facility that can be heated and cooled. By default, for most buildings, this is 100%. But if you do have any more specific questions about a portion of your facility that can't be heated or cooled, again, please reach out and we're happy to help. And finally, the meat and potatoes. We will need all of your utility bills for electricity, gas, water, and any other type of energy that is used on site. I understand that because of the utility billing cycles, a lot of bills often run imperfect, from the 13th to the 14th of next month. So you may need 13 or 14 bill copies to capture that full 365 days of data. In the event that you are, entering a bill for December 16th into January 17th of the next year, please rest assured Portfolio Manager applies a calculation to that month and it makes sure that only half, roughly half of that energy use is counted towards your 2025 data. So best rule of thumb is to just input the data as it appears on your bills and let Portfolio Manager do the rest. Once you start inputting more data into Portfolio Manager, you can see the primary use type for these buildings is expected to be a worship facility. If you do have any parking, especially parking that does use energy, such as having lights in the parking lot, you will need to input that as a use type as well. If it's just a flat open parking lot with no additional lighting, no additional energy use, that's not required to report. When you drop down the caret here for the worship facility use, you can see here some of those property use details that I mentioned earlier. We're going to see them one more time this presentation. The most important details are the ones with the blue stars next to them, those first 6 details. The remainder are nice to have, and they're very good for, buildings that want to better track their energy use and additional details that may impact how much energy is used. But the most critical ones to try to get right are those first 6. Look for the blue stars. So account creation. When you go into Portfolio Manager, you'll be asked to create an account. This asks for some simple introductory information, much like creating an account on any website. You can set a username and password. They'll ask for a first name, last name, and they have a little note there for organizations. We're not going to cross-reference this against any further records. Just name it something identifiable to your group and that DOEE may be better able to recognize. Ultimately, we'll be using that tax lot number to determine which buildings are or aren't in compliance. So the building name is really more for to us and will help you file an exemption. Lastly, a couple more basic information, address of the building, as mentioned, the gross floor area. If you know the year the building was built or erected, that's fantastic. If not, your best guess is also acceptable. We won't be double checking this, and it does not have an impact on your building score. Finally, under standard IDs, here for the city and town is where you can put in that SSL or jurisdictional tax lot ID. This should be 8 digits for most buildings. And at the very bottom, it does ask some property-specific questions. So many worship facilities also have a K through 12 school on site. Maybe not for smaller buildings, but if any of these apply to you, please select them accordingly. Here again are the property use details. These sometimes take the most time to locate. When you're just first creating that building profile, I welcome you all to put in the best available information you have, or you can even take a guess in the account creation process, as long as you're committed to working with myself or IPL to get slightly better data and refine it as you move forward. If you input something wrong, there's always the ability to correct it or update it. If you get better information about the building size, you can always adjust that and DOEE will update our records. Lastly, once you've created that building profile, you will be sharing it with DOEE so we can access and evaluate that information. You'll be able to go to your Contacts tab in the top right corner of the screen, add a new contact, and search for building.performance at dc.gov. Once you see District of Columbia annual reporting pop up, you'll be able to connect with us. And from there, I am more than happy to help anyone with any additional questions or any further data input process that they may have from that point. Um, Here again, please have a valid contact. This is the contact we will use if we do have any questions about your data. If you do get these automated emails from DOEE where we do have questions about your data, it is critical that you respond to them. Failure to respond to our data quality emails can result in non-compliance. And most of these are just general flags where if we notice it's 364 days instead of 365, it has kind of a domino effect on a lot of the metrics in the system. So we're just looking for some, minor typos, empty fields, things that maybe shouldn't have been reported as estimated data. And as long as you address our questions in the data quality alerts, we'll be able to work with you or accept your explanation and accept the data as compliant. So that's halfway through the process. It is the part that some folks struggle with the most, just making sure they have all of those property use details and gross floor areas. But from here, the majority of the information is just inputting the data off your bills. And please do reach out to, again, DOEE or IPL for additional support on that. I will send this presentation to Maddie to be shared after. I'm sorry, I'm in a library and they're making an announcement. Portfolio Manager does have a number of resources available, including training videos and a direct support line. And as mentioned, DOEE has a little 6-step module, as well as a step-by-step YouTube video that you can pause at any time or jump to a certain portion of the instructions. And again, if you have any questions, please do reach out through our help desk or submit an email to building.performance@dc.gov. But just getting that profile started and sharing it with a DOEE is half the battle. And again, we're more than willing to help from there. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Barbara. That was super helpful. I want to just add on to what Barbara said is that we're really here for you to help you with this process. Like, we don't want it to be scary or difficult. And like, use the resources that you have available to you, both at DOEE and through Interfaith Power and Light. My colleague Nils is also here tonight, and what he's offering is you can set up a one-on-one meeting with Nils if you need support in entering your data or figuring out how to get connected to DOEE and everything that Barbara went through in her presentation. So please let us know how we can help. Like we're here to help. The one thing I'll add is that Since there are so many houses of worship in DC that have solar, the benchmarking is a little more complicated if you have solar on your roof. So please reach out to us and we're happy to help with that. We've helped a lot of folks figure that out. I will say with the group of congregations that's a little bit larger than your buildings, the 25,000 to 50,000 square foot folks, about 2 years ago, when they were figuring out how to do this, we helped over 50 congregations with figuring out how to do this. And so please let us know. Like we've been through this before. You probably can't stump me with a question. That would be fun to see somebody try. But I think like you have good resources available to you. I wanted to give us some time if people have any specific questions or have already started to delve into this, whether there are any specific questions that Barbara or I and Nils can answer tonight from the folks we've got gathered here.
I have a question. This is Sylvia.
Yeah, go
I,
ahead, Sylvia.
I just did it for the first time a couple weeks ago, but you mentioned parking lights in the parking lot, which I didn't follow or I didn't track. I don't think I said that I had that in mind. So, how do I go back now and correct that? And then my second question is, so now what happens?
Barbara, do you want to go first and then I can add on anything?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for your question, Sylvia. If at any point, you realized you forgot to enter your parking lot information, you should be able to log back into your portfolio manager account and add a new property type, that new property
Oh,
type being parking. From there, it'll ask you the size of your parking lot, whether it is a open lot or a covered garage or something in between. And, our automatic reporting system pulls in that updated data every night. So we'll be able to see your updates and evaluate from there. I think to your question about what happens next, if I'm understanding it correctly, will be,
right.
DOEE will begin to evaluate your data on May 1st. We will email the contact on file if your data is found to be compliant, no notes, no questions. If we do have any questions, we will reach out, try to get clarification on that, and hopefully help you resolve any issues in your reporting or accept the explanation to our questions and again, accept the data as compliant. You'll receive confirmation of that.
Great. And when do we hear about what our energy score is? How do we know that?
Yeah, your Energy Star score should be visible in your profile as soon as
Oh,
you've entered the full 365 days of data and input all the property use details. In our acceptance of your report, we will also attach a file that includes all of the data you sent to us at the time the report was accepted to be compliant, which will include your Energy Star score in it.
great.
I also have a flat lot. Um, I have floodlights on the back of the building for the back door and for the driveway, but I don't have like lampposts specifically set up to illuminate the entire driveway. Does that need to be counted as driveway lighting or, I mean,
So I would guess that either that lighting use is already included on your Pepco bill,
yeah,
or you may potentially have a second Pepco bill for the lighting. If it's
no,
just battery lights or solar lights, then you don't need to account for those.
no, they're just regular like 90-watt equivalent spotlights, floodlights. Um, the other question I have is technically there are three buildings here. Two are attached. The parish house is detached, but as a tax lot, it's a single lot. So I just counted basically as one building.
That's a good question. So I could take that first. So if you have shared meter, like if you share your electricity and gas usage among all of the buildings, then that is a more complicated question. But DOEE is really only interested in the building that's over 10,000 square feet. So if you have two buildings that are connected, that share an electricity meter, share a gas meter, then that would be what you would need to benchmark. If you have, say, like a smaller building off to the side that has its own metering, like we're not concerned about that building at this point. Barbara, do you want to add anything on to what I said, or did I capture it?
Yeah, Maddie,
So,
you've been doing this for a while.
so in other
Yeah,
words,
the utility metering is kind of the defining factor. If your buildings span multiple tax lots or you have multiple buildings on one tax lot, that's less of a factor. But if they all share a common electric, water, or gas meter, then you would combine them as sort of one building.
okay, so the church and the office building are on one meter. The parish house is a separate meter. So the parish house can ignore. I don't have to input that data. It's just for the actual church and office building attached to it.
As long as the parish house is under 10,000 square feet, which I imagine it probably is.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah. So you can just think about the big
Main
building that you
building.
have.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Great question. So there's some great questions in the chat, and then I know Karen has had her hand up too. One thing, so Robin asked a great question in the chat about how to get this data to like auto sync from Pepco and Washington Gas. So there is a way to do that. However, what I will say is that since May 1st is coming up soon, what I would do is manually enter your data now and then get set up with this Pepco and Washington Gas system so that they can manually put your usage into your portfolio manager account, and then you don't have to enter it next year. I'll put some links to that in the chat. I know Barbara may have updated information, but I know the Pepco system is notoriously slow to get set up on. Maybe they've gotten a little better. I always like to throw the utilities under the bus, but um, so there is a way to sign up to get them to like send your monthly data to Portfolio Manager. And so you don't have to gather your bills at the end of the year and input it. So there are ways to do it. Up to two, Barbara says up to 2 weeks to respond to new requests. So if you're worried about this May 1st deadline, what I would do is just input it all yourself now, and then knowing that in the future you'll be able to have the utilities put them manually into your system. Anita asked a great question about, their congregation has solar panels. Why is reporting so complex? It's not crazy complex, but it does require if you have a net metered solar system, which a lot of folks do, not every congregation that has solar has net metered, but a lot of people do. If you have questions about what that means or what your system is, you can reach out to us, and we can help with that. You have to gather both your Pepco bills and the raw solar production information, and then you have to do a little bit of math, which isn't difficult to do, but it's not always straightforward. And you can't, the thing that makes it complex is you can't get all the information from one source. You have to combine these two sources to look at it.
So as a follow-up, to make sure I'm understanding, we do have a net meter. So
Okay,
what you're
perfect.
saying is that I can't just present my Pepco bill. I have to also contact the solar folks for that
Yes.
data.
Yes. Whoever owns the solar should have all of that information. Most of the solar providers in DC now know about this because I've bugged them multiple times about it. And so if you have trouble getting in touch with your solar folks, let us know, and it's possible we might know them or have a contact.
Okay, so let me just ask this question because I'll send the request now. What precisely am I asking them for?
So you'll ask them for the 2025 solar production kilowatt hour numbers by month is what you want. So like what they should send you is a spreadsheet with like each month, January through December, and a kilowatt hour production number of how much the solar system produced.
Thank you. I'm
Yeah,
sending the email now.
perfect. Sounds good. Karen, you've waited so patiently.
Thanks, Maddie, and thanks, Barbara, for this presentation. And I'm hoping you'll be able to send around the slides because they were chock.
Yes, we'll send her on the slides. We'll send her on the recording. It got interrupted a little bit in the middle because my computer died, but it should have most of the good information.
Okay, great. Yeah, the slide deck had, a lot of great content in it. So I actually have a few questions. One is there's this project going on with the Episcopal Diocese of Washington, the Energy Use Analysis Project.
Yes, yes.
If we're participating in that, how is that linked to this benchmarking?
So it's because St. Columba's is already participating. So we did with the Episcopal Diocese of Washington, we did an energy benchmarking study with many parishes, including St. Columba's. And so most of your data is already entered. You would just have to double check that everything from 2025 is entered because a lot for that study we were looking at like 2024 through half of 2025.
Okay,
But I believe I've talked to somebody else at your parish that's on top of it, that's
okay,
working on it. Yeah.
okay, great. All right. And then so kind of related to that, because I saw a preliminary draft of it, is there guidance? The question of what your square footage is a really important one to nail down. And we talked a little bit, somebody asked the question about multiple buildings, but does DOEE have guidance on how to estimate square footage?
Yeah, that's a super fun question. Go ahead, Barbara, and then I can add on.
Yeah, we have guidance available online for how to use existing building plans or plats or any architectural documents, if you happen to have them, to calculate your building area. There are also portfolio managers' definitions for what should be included in your gross floor area, which may impact, how big your building ends up being. Our team also has a couple of gross floor area experts, as I think of them, who are very, very familiar with the subject matter and can guide you through a way to physically measure your building if necessary, especially if your buildings have relatively simple geometry. If it's a square or a rectangle, our staff and I believe IPL, are able to help with that.
Okay, great.
I've sent Nils out to measure a church before, and I've done that too myself, which is kind of a fun thing you wouldn't know you get to do in this job. With the gross floor area, I just want to add on to that has been a substantial challenge for us with houses of worship because we're working with so many old historic buildings that don't necessarily have updated, architectural plans or digital versions of those architectural plans. And so if you are realizing, we don't have those plans, we don't really know exactly what our gross floor area is. I'll note that in the past with other congregations, we've noticed that the numbers from the DC Office of Tax and Revenue have not always been accurate in terms of how big your building actually is. And so if you have questions about what number should we use, how do we know how big our building is, reach out to us and I've worked with some other folks on this. We can also search public records and see what we can come up with. Usually there's occasionally some helpful things in there if you've done a renovation or any construction in the last 15 years. So let us know how.
Okay, that's great that you're available as a resource because that's been a question that's come up for us, and
Yes,
I don't know exactly where
it's
we are,
common. Yeah.
but definitely been a really wide range of numbers that we have encountered. My last question is there a way to tell on the DOEE website what kind of our status is? I found our property on your covered buildings list and like what ward it's in and what your estimate of our square footage is. But how do we know, like, are we in compliance? Like, presumably we would know if we were out of compliance, but is that publicly available or how is that known?
Especially for buildings that are reporting for the first time this year, the way to know that you're compliant will be after the May 1st deadline when you receive an email from us. DOEE will not be evaluating buildings for formal official compliance until after that May 1st deadline. So after May 1st, you should expect either a compliance email or we'll reach out with a couple of questions. Moving forward, more so for next year, for 2027, buildings compliance status will be displayed in our public disclosure. And that's where you could just look up your building online and double check the Energy Star score and whether it's compliant. However, for first-time reporters, they are exempt from our disclosure. Just gives folks like a little bit more wiggle room and privacy to, get through that first year without being publicly put online as non-compliant.
Okay, great. That's really helpful. But presumably then at some point the first time reporters will show up at some point down the
Yeah.
road, but give us a little bit of
Starting
a
next year.
okay, gotcha.
And I'll
Okay.
note that, so DC, Barbara didn't mention this, but DC has this really great map that I just put a link in the chat to that is kind of the public disclosure of where so you can, if once you get an Energy Star score for your congregation, like you won't be up on the map for a little while, like Barbara said, but you can take a look and see how you compare to the other houses of worship that are already benchmarking. And what I will say is like there are a lot of houses of worship in the district that could be saving a lot more money and energy and from what I've looked at the data. And so our goal with doing all of this, like yes, you have to gather the things and do it, but like we're really thinking about, okay, like once we know where we are, then we can think about how do we save money and energy within each congregation. And that's something I'm really interested in helping folks out with. So we do this step one of getting through the benchmarking and then thinking about no matter where you are on that scale, like what can we do so that you can have more money for your mission and less money that you have to pay to Pepco and Washington Gas. And
That's
so
great.
everybody benefits from that once we do that, because I'm sure you all have money you'd love to not be sending to Pepco. So
100%.
yeah.
Thank you very much. And then there's another webinar that's coming up in a couple weeks. Is that a
Yes.
repeat of this
It's probably going to be a repeat, but if you've already gotten started and like want to come for the end of it and ask some questions, feel free to do that. I'll also, Nils, would you be able to put your link in the chat for when folks can schedule one-on-one meetings? So my colleague Nils is here. You can schedule a one-on-one meeting with him to talk about your benchmarking and get help with anything you might need. So let us know. And Nils has a pretty open calendar, so you should be able to find a time to meet with him if needed.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, were there any other questions that folks had?
Yeah, as for the square footage, I have to do an annual report for the Methodists every year. Is it okay if I use that number for right now? I mean,
I would
I'm not
say
sure.
if that's the number you have with the Methodists, I would say let's use that number as a starting place, and then if we
Okay,
have
because I'm not
questions.
sure how accurate it is. That's the thing, but it's a
Um,
number I've used for 15 years, so.
It's probably not completely inaccurate then. But what we can also do to double check, and this will be more of an issue next year when the reports have to be verified. This year, we're just getting folks started with
Okay.
doing the benchmarking. Um, Let us, we can look at that and we can scrutinize that number more carefully in the future. But if that, I would use that
Okay.
number that you have. And Nils put his link in the chat, so if anybody wants help, especially like walking through how to do the solar benchmarking, feel free to schedule a time to chat with Nils. Were there
The
any
chat would be
other?
important.
Oh, go
Yeah.
ahead, Kevin. Sorry.
When we go to rewatch this, will all the chats and all the links be in there as well?
I believe that the chat will not be in there, but what I will do is I will save the chat before I sign off, and then I can include the most important links in the follow-up email that I'll send everyone tomorrow.
Okay.
And are your point of contact information in the presentation or going to be in your email?
Yeah, so what
So,
I'll do is I'll provide contact information for both DOEE's help desk that Barbara mentioned, as well as um, Nils and because we offer DOEE's help desk works with anybody who needs help doing this, and we can provide specific support, one-on-one support to houses of worship. So we'll include all of that, and I'll go ahead and put my email in the chat right now too for folks. And I have all of your emails because you signed up, so. All right, well, I know we've got just a few more minutes before the top of the hour. I'm happy to let folks go early, or if there's any more questions, I'm also happy to hang around and answer them.
Thank you. I look forward to getting the information from you, and I'll get your email from that. Okay. So I'd
Sounds
like to
good. Yeah, thanks
thank you
everyone
for
for
this
coming.
info session.
Yes, we're here to be helpful. You can do it. We're cheering you on. Yeah, that's what I wanted to say. Okay,
and
well,
I'm glad it sounds like something that we can actually do. We don't need to hire somebody else to do it for us, right?
yes, and I will note there's companies that have been sending things around to congregations saying
Yep.
you have to do this, you can hire me to do it. We can help you for free. You're perfectly welcome to hire somebody to help you do it, but it's not a requirement for the law or anything.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone. Take good care.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.